All right, Truth Seekers. I wanted to get into something Tom Hartman, my good friend, wrote a couple of days ago and posted at his website. He's talking about the Postmaster General, this one appointed by Trump. DeJoy is his name. What's the bastard's first name? Well, what an arrogant snot he is, huh? After Trump was removed from office, DeJoy said something to the effect, yeah, well, you're stuck with me. And I think that's because his job was converted from a presidential appointee to civil service. And as we all know, it's almost impossible to get rid of somebody who has civil service protection. So anyway, DeJoy, I can't think of his first name, but that's okay. I don't want to know his first name. DeJoy has been doing everything he can to screw up something that was started by Benjamin Franklin, the U.S. Postal Service. And as Hartman wrote the other day, the Republicans, he calls them Republicans still. I call them fascist Christians, as you know, but I'll go with what Tom wrote. The Republicans are about to win a major battle in their war on electric vehicles. Now, I told you several years back here in Georgia, when the state was run by Democrats, there was a tax advantage. I think it was $2,000 tax rebate if you bought an electric vehicle, fully electric. And that was coupled with a federal benefit, I think, of it was a big amount of money, $5,000, $6,000 tax rebate there. Altogether, you had $7,000 or $8,000 tax rebate if you bought an electric vehicle, which offset the cost of the vehicle when they were more expensive than they are now. Well, as a result of that, we bought a Leaf, Nissan Leaf, that was fully electric. Granted, it only had about a 200-mile range, but it was, about a 100-mile range before it needed to be recharged. But it was an electric vehicle, and it was emission-free. But as soon as the Republicans took over Georgia, they removed the tax rebate, the state tax rebate. And they said the reason they were doing it was because, I'm paraphrasing, but because it was interfering in the sales and the production of gas vehicles, gasoline-using vehicles, and was interfering in the production of oil and gas. It was having a negative effect. So how do you fix that? You just eliminate the tax subsidy. Huh? If anybody from another planet ever comes here and looks at the debris left from when the human species and other species along with us dies out, if they ever take the time to study our tree rings, so to speak, they will find that the human population on this planet committed suicide, knowing it was committing suicide. But I digress. So in this Christian fascist war on electric vehicles, this time the Republicans are about to win with the second largest vehicle fleet in America. It's the one owned by the U.S. Postal Service. Hartman says it's an outrageous story that most Americans don't know a thing about. And I put myself in that category. Thank you, Tom. Transportation, as he points out, is the single largest source of global warming emissions from the United States. And the post office, the intelligent people concerned about the environment, people at the post office once thought they could do something about that. And to understand what's going on with the post office right now, Hartman writes, you first must know the backstory, that it seems most media outlets aren't interested in telling us about or discussing. It's an issue that's hitting millions of Americans right now. One of Hartman's kids, for example, recently became the first member of his family to buy a fully 100% electric car. And he writes that she was so excited and has loved it driving around Portland until she had to drive to another state for a conference when she discovered what a problem America not having an electric charging infrastructure causes. Oh, we have gas stations out the kazoo, don't we? Oh my God, you can't go 100 yards in most urban areas without finding a gas station, right? But electric charging station? And Hartman points out that the way to solve that problem, of course, is to have a substantial and massive increase in electric vehicles. And that's exactly what the post office set out to jumpstart back in 2006, 16 years ago. So things were going well, as Hartman points out, for the post office back then. Back then, in 2006. They were making money, the post office was. They weren't in the red. They had a surplus. And therefore, they were seriously considering replacing a large part of their fleet, which, as Hartman writes, is the largest fleet of civilian vehicles in the nation. They were going to replace their entire fleet with electric and electric hybrid vehicles. The first partial electric vehicle we ever had was a Prius, hybrid. Anyway, it would have been a big boost for the electric car. Think about it. And a huge slap in the face to the fossil fuel barons who, even back in 2006, obviously owned outright the Republican Party. This was when it was really in the middle of its conversion to the fascist Christian Party, in my mind. So, Hartman points out that on May 17th, 2006, Walter O'Tormey, who was the post office's vice president of engineering, this man unveiled a new hybrid gas electric mail delivery vehicle in Boston to an audience of nearly 100 industry representatives, environmentalists, and Postal Service employees. And he said this, quote, "As an agency that delivers mail to 145 million businesses and households 6 days a week and drives approximately 1.1 billion miles a year and consumes more than 125 million gallons of motor fuel annually, we are in a unique position to demonstrate to the public and other businesses the growing viability and positive environmental and energy-saving benefits of alternate fuel technologies," end quote. I mean, good God. The guy had his numbers right, he had his observations right, and he was trying to make a point. Yeah. Now, in their annual report in 2006, the same year that Mr. O'Tormey said what I just quoted, well, in that same year's annual report, the Postal Service bragged about their ambition to move away from relying entirely on fossil fuels. This is what they said in their annual report, quote, "With more than 216,000 vehicles, the Postal Service has the largest civilian fleet in the United States. We continue to evaluate various fuel types and alternative fuel vehicles, including hybrid trucks, hydrogen fuel cell vans, electric step vans, and liquid natural gas delivery vehicles," end quote. Now, let me pause a second. I mean, think of the choices there. Hybrid trucks, hydrogen fuel cell vans, electric step vans, liquid natural gas delivery vehicles. Here in Atlanta, the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, which is a private-public consortium, I think I had that right, but they run the trains, the commuter trains here in Atlanta metro area, and the buses. And if not all, the vast majority of their street traveling buses are now all natural gas. They no longer emit the huge clouds of exhaust fumes that came with diesel-generated energy or gasoline-generated energy. And they make a very strange kind of puff-puff sound when they're accelerating. But if you travel behind one of these huge MARTA buses now, you can do so without traveling in a cloud of dark exhaust that makes your eyes water and your nose hurt and your lungs bleed. You know what I'm saying? Now, somebody will probably, and you don't have to let me know, that burning natural gas also emits atmospheric warming components. Yeah, well, I understand that. It's not completely neutral where it concerns CO2, but it's a hell of a lot, 1,000 times better than gasoline or diesel fuel, right? Where was I? Hartman writes, if the post office pulled off a massive transition away from fossil fuels, it would jumpstart at the time, 2006, the then new electric, hybrid, and fuel cell technologies, which obviously would have made it easier for wider use in the general population, a large national so-called electric refueling or recharging infrastructure, and a significant reduction in greenhouse gases. That, to me, is the most important part, the significant reduction in greenhouse gases. So, we were all excited about the possibility, weren't we? I remember reading about this, not about the post office, but about the alternate fuel driven vehicles. I thought, oh my goodness, yes. Priuses. I remember the first time a friend of mine got a Prius, I was just blown away. What? You mean there's batteries in there and it has a little gas tank? And if the batteries run down, it clicks over to gas and it recharges the battery? Oh my God. Now I realize that the Priuses still were contributing to global warming with CO2 emissions, but maybe 1/10, 1/20, 1/30 of what an engine driven by gasoline contributed. I was just, oh my goodness, we're on the cusp of something new and wonderful. Maybe we're going to get a handle on global warming after all. Thud. The thud was the sound that idea made when it hit the ground and crashed. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.